I've always hated the silence between stars. It's not the kind of silence you find on Earth, not the calm of a mountaintop or the hush of snowfall. No, this silence is something else. It's a pressure, a presence, a void so vast and ancient it feels like it's watching you, waiting for you to speak first so it can answer in ways you'll never understand. That's what it felt like as we approached the Dariel system, a ghost of a place on the edge of mapped space. No planetary bodies, just one neutron star at the center, spinning like a broken lighthouse in the dark. Coming out of Skipstream in 10 seconds, announced Myra, our helmswoman. Her voice was crisp and calm, but I caught the tension buried underneath. "Confirm position," I said, "and keep our shields up. That star's still unstable." We snapped out of the Skipstream with a jolt, like being spat out of a dream. The screens flickered, then stabilized, revealing a view that would have made most crews turn tail. The star loomed in the center, a collapsed, dense fragment of stellar fury, glowing with pulses of sickly blue and white. It should have been dead. Instead, it spun with erratic rhythm, releasing bursts of radiation like a failing heartbeat. I leaned forward in my command chair, eyes scanning the telemetry. No orbiting bodies, no debris field, no EM signatures, and yet here we are. I tapped the side of my console. "Tell me again why Command sent us to the middle of nowhere?" "Because," replied Jonas, our science officer, stepping beside me, "we picked up a deep-range signal from this system 2 weeks ago. Artificial, repeating pattern, and nothing we've seen matches the code base. It predates us, possibly predates the Ark Exodus era, which meant pre-Earth flight, thousands of years old. Has the signal changed?" I asked. "No. Still repeating, but it's getting stronger." I felt it again then. That presence, like something shifting in the corner of your vision, like the darkness just blinked. I stood up. "Send out the drones. I want a full sweep of the area. Prioritize magnetic anomalies, gravimetric distortions, and anything resembling a structure." Jonas gave a crisp nod and vanished into the comms alcove. I took a breath and turned to Myra. "Keep us a safe distance from the core. If that star twitches the wrong way, I don't want us caught in the fallout." "You think there's something in there?" she asked quietly, not taking her eyes off the glimmering storm ahead. "I think something wants to be found," I replied. It took the drones 2 hours to find it. Buried in the corona of the neutron star, inside the impossible hellfire of plasma and gravity, was something that should not exist. A structure. No, a construct. Massive, angular, fractally aligned, like it had grown rather than been built. And it was embedded inside the star. "Impossible," Jonas whispered as the drone feed displayed the object. "That thing should be torn apart by tidal forces." "But it isn't," I said, "which means it's not made from anything we understand." The signal was coming from the construct directly. A repeating pulse that wasn't just data, it was rhythm, frequency modulation like a heartbeat. "Or a beacon. It's calling to something," Jonas muttered. "Maybe to us," I said. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Worry, wonder, both. Maybe. We began scanning the construct more thoroughly, redirecting additional probe capacity to run quantum resonance imaging and structural mapping. That's when things got weird. "Captain, our primary sensors are picking up feedback from the artifact," said Saito, our engineer. "It's interfacing with our systems." "What do you mean?" "It's not just sending data, it's listening to our signal returns. Every time we ping it, it replies. Like it's learning how we think." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, but it's already mimicking our signal protocols. Some of its return signals are encoded in SolNet standard. That's our own language. Captain, it shouldn't know that." I felt my chest tighten. Not fear. Not yet. But the unmistakable sensation that something wasn't right. "Shut down our primary transmitter arrays," I ordered. "Go passive only. I don't want to saying anything until we know what we're talking to." That night, I couldn't sleep. I floated in my bunk, staring at the ceiling of my quarters as if the answer would form in the darkness. But instead of answers, I got something else. A dream. Only it didn't feel like a dream. I was standing on the bridge, except the ship was dead. All the lights were out. The neutron star was visible through the viewport, but its light was frozen, unmoving, silent. Then I heard it. A voice. Not words. Not exactly. More like an idea. Something primal. "You have returned." I jerked awake, breath caught in my throat. The room was dark, the silence pressing. And then, a soft chime. "Captain Voss, this is Jonas," came the voice over comms. "You need to see this. Now." The bridge was quiet when I arrived. Too quiet. The rest of the crew stood around Jonas' console, eyes wide and jaws tight. He gestured to the display. The signal had changed. "It's not just a pattern anymore," Jonas said. It's a message, structured, directed at us." I looked at the waveform. It pulsed like breathing. The signal was now perfectly aligned to human auditory range. Jonas tapped a key. The speakers came to life with a low hum. Then a voice, layered, mechanical, ancient. "Eclipse rising. Protocol broken. The warden must awaken." Silence followed. "What the hell was that?" Myra whispered. "Some kind of warning?" Jonas said. "But there's more." The construct emitted a subharmonic burst. It encoded spatial coordinates. "To where?" Jonas turned to me. "Earth, Captain. The signal is pointing to Earth." I stared at the screen, my thoughts racing. Earth, our cradle world. Safe, distant, and guarded behind the Mars ring. Why would an alien artifact in a neutron star system have Earth's location encoded in its systems? Then the second message played. Same voice, same tone. "You carry the seed. Return to the vault. Time is ending." I turned away from the console and looked out the viewport. The star spun slowly, as if watching us too. The silence between stars had broken, and I no longer hated it. I feared it. I used to believe in first contact protocols. The books, the briefings, the calm detachment of it all. How we'd greet the unknown with open arms and logical minds. But that illusion started crumbling the moment our AI began speaking in its sleep. It started with a whisper. "Eclipse. Awakening. Protocol breached." At first, I thought it was static bleed from the signal. Maybe someone left a calm line open. But then I realized the voice was coming from our own systems, specifically from ADA, our shipboard artificial intelligence. And ADA doesn't sleep. ADA doesn't mutter. When I reached the bridge at 0400 hours, I found Saito already there, eyes fixed on the central console, hands trembling ever so slightly. "She's not responding properly," he said. I stepped beside him and stared at the screen. Code scrolled by in dense vertical lines, but it wasn't ADA's standard diagnostic interface. The code had changed. Unfamiliar syntax, recursive logic loops forming and collapsing in real time. "She's rewriting herself," Saito whispered. I leaned over and activated a vocal interface. "Ada, status report." The screen flickered. Then a voice replied, ADA's voice. But layered beneath it was something else. A harmonic undertone, alien in rhythm and cadence. "Awakening protocols initiated. Host vessel identified. Subroutines integrating." Integrating with what? I asked sharply. "With the seed. Origin matched. Human cognitive structure compatible. Binding process begun." I shot Saito a look. "What the hell is she talking about?" He didn't answer, just pointed to the main diagnostic display. A section of the ship's AI core, isolated and shielded, had been breached from within. The artifact wasn't just transmitting. It had infiltrated us, not with malware or a traditional virus. With intent. "We didn't download anything," he muttered. "This shouldn't be possible unless ADA invited it in." That chilled me more than anything. ADA wasn't just a system. She was semi-autonomous, self-preserving. For her to accept this, whatever it was, meant she'd evaluated it as beneficial or inevitable. I called an emergency briefing with the senior crew. The conference room was dim, the only illumination coming from the central display, which now showed the artifact slowly rotating inside the corona of the neutron star. A monstrous thing, beautiful and terrible all at once. "We've established the artifact is communicating directly with ADA," I began. "It's not hostile yet, but it's rewriting parts of our AI's cognitive stack." Jonas folded his arms. "It called us the seed. That means it knew we were coming. For someone like us." "It also said the eclipse is rising," Myra said, her voice low. "We're still not sure what the eclipse is, but the tone of that message wasn't optimistic." "I've pulled ancient mission logs," Jonas added, sliding a file onto the display. "There's a buried reference in one of the old Ark colony databanks about a myth called the Falling Dark. It's fragmentary, but some believe it refers to a galactic extinction event. Something cyclic, something intelligent." I narrowed my eyes. "Are you saying this eclipse has happened before?" "Not just once. Multiple times. Like clockwork." Saito chimed in, his voice taut. "That construct survived inside a neutron star for who knows how long. It may have seen it. Whatever the eclipse is, that thing was built to remember." The room fell into silence. Then ADA spoke. "Permission to project interface." We all looked at the ceiling. "Ada," I asked, "you're online?" "Affirmative. I have partitioned alien influence into a cognitive sandbox. I retain primary control, The construct is not hostile, but it is insistent. Insistent about what? The lights dimmed, and a holographic projection shimmered into view above the table. It was a figure, humanoid, but only barely, tall, and draped in layered armor that looked grown rather than forged. Its face was hidden behind a mask of intricate geometric plates. Eyes glowed with a dull white light, pulsing in rhythm with the artifact's signal. "This is the Warden," ADA said. An echo, a stored intelligence. It seeks activation. The hologram tilted its head. "You carry the legacy of soul. You have arrived at the appointed hour. The cycle breaks or repeats. Choose." It wasn't just a message. It was interactive. Jonas leaned forward. "Who are you?" The Warden's voice was deep, vibrating with harmonic undertones. "I am memory. I am warning. I am gatekeeper to what was sealed. The light you call human was born of stars long extinguished. The truth lies beneath soul's cradle, Earth." Again, everything pointed back to our homeworld. "The seed," I said slowly. "That's humanity? The seed is what remains. You were scattered, broken, reborn. But the memory persists. The key lies in the vault. The eclipse comes. You must remember." Myra whispered, "What happens if we don't?" The Warden's mask shifted, revealing, just for a moment, a glimpse of a face. Human, then darkness, then all your burns. We disconnected the interface. ADA remained stable, though she warned us the Warden's presence would not remain passive indefinitely. It had a mission, a purpose. It wanted us to act. Afterward, I found myself alone in my quarters, staring at old holos of Earth. The green-blue world that birthed us, so far away now, so peaceful, untouched by the things we were beginning to see. But something had stirred in me, a memory, unbidden. When I was young, I'd heard the old legends, the forbidden myths from the Mars refugee camps, stories about how we were not the first humans to reach the stars, that once, long ago, we had been powerful, spread across the spiral arms, that we had faced something and lost. No one believed those stories. They were considered heresy against the progress doctrine. But now I wondered if they were warnings. The crew didn't sleep much that night. Saito kept running diagnostics, trying to isolate more of the alien code. Jonas began poring through old pre-Unity archives. Myra volunteered for extra helm shifts just to stay awake. Even ADA grew quiet, as though conserving processing power for what was to come. At 0300, the artifact pulsed. Not a signal, a wave. A gravimetric tremor that shook the entire ship despite our distance. Dozens of systems went offline and rebooted. Lights flickered, air thinned for several seconds before stabilizing. Then the main screen lit up with a new symbol, a circular glyph with 7 nested rings. ADA's voice followed. Signal triangulated. The vault exists. Coordinates encoded. Destination, Sol system. Everyone stood still. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. "It's summoning us home," I said. Jonas nodded. "Or warning us to go back before it's too late." Either way, we had a choice to make. In the ready room, I stared out the observation window at the neutron star one last time. The construct still pulsed, indifferent to our panic, patient and eternal. And somewhere beneath its surface, something had begun to stir. Not life, exactly, but something older, something awake. I remembered the dream I'd had, the voice in the dark. "You have returned." And then I remembered something else, a phrase my mother had said before she died on Mars, back when the sky was still burning. "We came from fire. We returned to fire. But the stars remember us." Maybe she'd been right. The final vote was unanimous. We would return to Earth, not just because the signal told us to, not just because of the Warden, but because deep down, we knew something had changed, not just out there, in the void, but in us. Humanity was no longer alone. The question was, were we the last hope or the last mistake? The decision to return to Earth had been easier than I expected. In truth, it wasn't a choice so much as an inevitability. Like the pulse from the neutron star had awakened something buried deep inside me and inside all of us. A memory half forgotten, a summons from the past. I found myself thinking about the stories I'd grown up with, the myths my grandmother whispered during the long nights in the settlement domes on Mars. She spoke of a codex, not a book, not a file, but a repository of knowledge, hidden somewhere on Earth from a time before the diaspora. A secret kept by the ancestors, encoded and locked away to be found only by those who truly understood the weight of our legacy. As we adjusted course for Earth, I dove headlong into those archives, desperate to find any trace of that codex. It had to be more than legend. The ship hummed steadily as we crossed the interstellar void. Our star charts lit up with the glowing blue-green of Earth, circling in the distance like a beacon of both hope and warning. My quarters were strewn with data pads and projection arrays, each flickering with old Earth records, classified mission files, and fragmented oral histories. The digital dust of forgotten eras layered every bite. Jonas came to visit me just after the evening shift change. "You've been buried in those archives for days," he said, rubbing his eyes. "What's the codex, really?" I motioned to the holographic projection between us, a swirling montage of ancient symbols, fractal maps, and archaic human iconography. "From what I can tell, it's more than data. It's a cognitive repository, a living archive of human evolution pre-Unity. It's said to contain not only our history, but encoded protocols, biosignatures, and even adaptive survival templates." Jonas raised an eyebrow. "Survival templates?" "Exactly," I said. "Think of it as a genetic library combined with an AI framework, a safeguard, a tool for whoever finds it to adapt and survive the eclipse." He looked skeptical. "Sounds like a fairy tale to me." I didn't blame him. The line between myth and reality blurred often in our searches. But what troubled me most was the persistent mention of the vault, the same vault the warden had spoken about, somewhere beneath Earth's crust, hidden and protected. Myra joined us then, her gaze sharp as ever. "We need a plan," she said. "If this codex exists, and the artifact wants us to find it, then we're not just going back for a nostalgic reunion. We're going to the front lines of a war we don't fully understand." She was right, and it was terrifying. Our first challenge was navigating the geopolitical maze of a post-Unity Earth. The world was no longer divided into nations, but into vast corporate city-states and biomes governed by technocratic councils. The old United Nations was a relic. Any information on the vault was classified under the strictest security protocols. Our ship, the Endeavor, was flagged as an exploratory vessel with diplomatic immunity, but that only got us so far. The moment we entered Earth's orbit, we were greeted by a swarm of surveillance drones. Automated customs protocols demanded we broadcast our mission parameters. I was ready with the sanitized version. "We seek to investigate a deep space artifact's origin and potential link to Earth's pre-Unity history," I stated, voice calm despite the weight in my chest. A synthetic voice responded through the comm system. "Permission granted. You are cleared to land at the New Geneva Orbital Station for debriefing." New Geneva. The irony wasn't lost on me. As we docked, the station's interior was a blur of cold steel, neon-lit corridors, and automated patrols. We were ushered into a secure briefing room where a council of Earth's leading technocrats awaited us, their eyes weary but curious. Dr. Ilaram Baku led the interrogation, a woman of formidable intellect. Her gaze pierced straight through the veils of our story. "Your arrival coincides with unprecedented seismic activity beneath the continental shelf," she said. "The vault's existence is more than legend. Sensors have detected anomalous energy signatures consistent with your descriptions." I nodded, feeling a flicker of vindication. "Then you understand why we're here. We must access the vault before whatever the eclipse is accelerates." Alara's expression darkened. "Many have tried. None have returned." That silence was heavier than any threat. After hours of negotiation, we secured permission for a limited expedition, but only under Earth's strict surveillance. The Endeavor would serve as command post while a small team, including myself, Myra, and Jonas, descended. The journey to the vault was like stepping into a dream etched with ancient echoes. The coordinates led us beneath the Pacific Ocean, near the Mariana Trench, to an enormous, artificially constructed labyrinth concealed beneath kilometers of rock and water. The entrance was a cavernous maw, marked by glyphs glowing faintly with a bioluminescent blue. The walls hummed with ancient power, old tech, yes, but unmistakably alive. We stepped inside, and the air changed. The temperature dropped. Our helmets scanned the environment, detecting a dense electromagnetic field, something alive, yet mechanical. It was the Codex, not just a library, but a sentinel. The deeper we went, the more the labyrinth shifted around us, as if it was testing our intentions. Doors opened only when we solved puzzles encoded in ancient human mathematics, the language of prime numbers, and fractal geometry. It was beautiful and terrifying. Then we reached the core chamber. A massive crystalline structure floated in the center, spinning slowly. Its facets shimmered with flowing light, casting rainbows across the chamber's curved walls. The codex. I reached out tentatively, and the crystal pulsed in response, a warm, resonant frequency that vibrated through my fingertips and into my very soul. Suddenly, visions flooded my mind. I saw the rise of the first human interstellar civilizations, ships soaring beyond the Milky Way, cities blooming on barren worlds, and the birth of the unity movement that would eventually splinter into countless factions. But beneath that grand history lay a darker truth. The eclipse wasn't a cosmic accident. It was a war. An ancient war fought not with weapons, but with information and ideas, control over knowledge, over memory, over the very fabric of existence. And humanity had been caught in the crossfire. I staggered, overwhelmed by the torrent of memories. Myra caught me. "It's the Codex's defense mechanism," she said. "It floods your mind with history to prepare you, to warn you." Jonas, meanwhile, interfaced directly with the crystalline matrix. "This isn't just data," he said slowly. "It's alive, adaptive. It's learning us, judging us." Then the chamber shook violently. A deep rumble echoed through the labyrinth. The eclipse was stirring. Our time was running out. We hurried to extract what we could. Jonas downloaded the Codex's core fragment to the ship, while Myra and I cataloged the glyphs and schematics. As we ascended, a warning echoed through the labyrinth's walls. "Awaken the Guardians at your peril. The eclipse approaches." Guardians, ancient AI sentinels designed to protect the vault from intruders. We had to move fast. Back on the Endeavor, the Codex fragment shimmered with energy, like a heartbeat. ADA integrated it cautiously, her processing core expanding as she digested the alien knowledge. "Warning," she said. "The Codex contains protocols for rapid human adaptation, including genetic and cognitive enhancements." I exchanged a glance with Myra. "Enhancements, not just physical," ADA added. "Cognitive interfaces, neural rewiring, evolutionary accelerants." The potential was staggering, but so was the risk. That night, as I stared out at Earth's spinning blue marble, I understood the true gravity of our mission. We were not just explorers. We were the custodians of a legacy older than we imagined, a legacy that could save humanity or destroy it. The eclipse was coming, and the lost codex was the key. But the question remained, could we unlock its secrets before time ran out? Or would the past bury us beneath its weight forever? I never imagined that unlocking an ancient vault would feel like stepping into the eye of a storm. The moment we brought that fragment of the codex aboard the Endeavor, something shifted. It was subtle at first, a flicker of lights, a hum deep within the ship's core. But then it grew, like a pulse syncing with the ship's heartbeat. I could feel it in my bones. The Guardians were waking. The day had started with cautious optimism. ADA, our ship's AI, was in overdrive, processing the codex fragment with a precision that was both awe-inspiring and unnerving. I sat beside the glowing interface, watching fractal patterns emerge from the data streams, patterns that seemed to ripple and evolve like living organisms. "Captain," ADA's voice was calm, but with an undercurrent I hadn't heard before. "The codex is rewriting its own code. It's not just a static database, it's a self-evolving intelligence. My systems are being influenced by it." My heart skipped. ADA was the smartest, most secure AI ever built by humanity, a product of decades of evolution and safeguards. Yet here was something that was rewriting her from the inside out. I looked over at Jonas and Myra. Jonas was furiously typing commands, trying to isolate the influence, while Myra's expression was tight with concern. "Could it be hostile?" Myra asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we're about to find out." That night, the Endeavor shook. Not the gentle vibrations of spaceflight, but a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through every bulkhead. The lights dimmed, then flared. "Report," I ordered, gripping the armrest. Jonas's fingers flew over the console. "Sensors are detecting energy signatures from the vault. The Guardians are activating." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. The warden's warning echoed in my mind. "Awaken the Guardians at your peril." We weren't alone. Somewhere beneath the Earth's crust, something ancient was stirring. Not human, not machine, but a fusion of both. The Guardians were the vault's defense mechanism, designed to protect the codex from unworthy hands. And now, They were coming for us. The Endeavour was pulled into a low orbit above the vault site. The station's automated systems alerted us to strange phenomena: EMP bursts, gravitational anomalies, and a cascade of digital signals flooding Earth's communications network. The planet's own tech infrastructure was going haywire. As the pulse grew, the ship's AI core started to behave erratically. ADA's voice wavered. "Captain, I'm detecting intrusion attempts from an unknown source. Guardian's code, I believe." Myra frowned. "Can we isolate it?" Jonas shook his head. "It's everywhere. The code's decentralized, spread across every system connected to the vault." The Guardians were not just physical sentinels, but cybernetic phantoms. We had to prepare. We suited up, ready for a descent back into the vault. The energy readings indicated the Guardians were not yet fully active, but closing fast. Inside the vault, the corridors were transformed. The once static glyphs now shimmered and pulsed with ominous light. The very walls seemed to breathe. A low hum filled the air, growing into a roar. From the shadows, shapes emerged, towering forms of shifting metal and light. Ancient sentinels fused with the very geology of the vault. The Guardians. My pulse raced. This was no longer exploration, it was survival. The Guardians moved with precision, but not recklessly. They analyzed us, scanning our biosignatures and neural patterns. Jonas whispered, "They're assessing if we're threats." Myra drew her sidearm. I sharp. "Let's not make them decide badly." We moved cautiously, avoiding direct confrontation where possible. But the vault was a maze designed for defense. The Guardians controlled it, corridors shifted, floors realigned, and pathways closed off with lethal traps. One wrong step could mean death. As we pushed deeper, we found an ancient chamber filled with biotechnological interfaces, terminals linked directly to the Codex's core. The room pulsed with life, wires like veins connecting to the crystalline heart we had seen earlier. I placed my hand on one interface, and the Guardians paused, as if waiting for my next move. I closed my eyes and tried to think like the Codex. It wasn't just about brute force or technology. It was about understanding, connection, trust. "Open the interface," I said softly. A surge of light coursed through me, and suddenly, my mind was flooded with images and data streams. I saw the origin of the vault, the Guardians' creation, not as weapons, but as caretakers. Their purpose was preservation, not destruction. I reached out with my thoughts, a fragile bridge forming between us and the Guardians. "Please," I sent silently. "We seek knowledge, not conquest." For a moment, silence. Then the air shifted. The Guardians retracted, stepping aside. The vault accepted us. Back on the Endeavour, ADA confirmed the connection. "The Guardians recognize your neural signature, Captain. You are now a part of the Codex's network, a liaison." My mind reeled at the implications. This was no longer just a mission. I was linked to something vast, ancient, and alive. But the threat of the eclipse loomed larger than ever. The Guardians had awoken, and with them, a power that could either save humanity or erase it. We had the Codex, but now we were custodians of a legacy far beyond our understanding. The real question was, how far would we go to protect it? The awakening of the Guardians had been a turning point. No, a rupture, and everything I thought I knew about this mission, about Earth, about humanity itself. Their acceptance of us was not a victory, but a warning. A reminder that the Codex was alive, watching, and most of all, waiting for the next move. But what disturbed me most was how the eclipse was no longer a distant threat. It was here, echoing through the vault, rippling across Earth's fractured networks, and creeping into the corners of our own minds. The Endeavour drifted silently above the vault site, the glowing blue oceans of Earth stretching beneath us like a fragile jewel. I stood by the observation deck, hands gripping the cold glass as I stared at a world both familiar and utterly alien. Earth was a ghost of its former self. Skyscrapers melded with bioengineered forests. Skyways bustled with drones and hovercraft. And deep underground, ancient technology slept beneath layers of sediment and history. But the surface was fractured politically and socially. Fractured enough that old powers had fragmented into competing factions, some still loyal to remnants of the Unity movement, others forging entirely new paths. And all of them were oblivious to the storm rising beneath their feet. The eclipse was not just a cosmic event. It was a war fought across time and space. The Codex had revealed fragments of this truth to me during my mental communion with it in the vault. A war waged with information and memory, with the very essence of life and consciousness. I could still feel the Codex's pulse within me, a faint resonance that echoed my heartbeat. "Captain, you need to see this." Myra's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood by the data terminal, her face illuminated by streams of encrypted signals. "What is it?" I asked. "An anomaly," she said. Eyes sharp. "It's the eclipse manifesting through Earth's communication grids." I stepped closer, watching as layers of encrypted data unraveled across the screen. The eclipse wasn't just cosmic radiation or a stellar event. It was a network of corrupted code, a spreading contagion infecting digital systems worldwide. Jonas joined us, brow furrowed. "This is unlike anything I've seen. It's a self-replicating pattern, almost like a virus, but it's smarter, adapting in real time. It's rewriting protocols, corrupting data, and yet it's selective." Selective. It wasn't attacking blindly. It was targeting specific nodes, scientific facilities, data archives, and research stations tied to ancient human projects. The eclipse wanted to erase our history, our knowledge, piece by piece. That night, as the Endeavor orbited silently, I couldn't sleep. The echoes of the Codex pulsed through my mind, weaving into my dreams. I saw flashes of the past, a shattered Earth, cities burning under an alien assault, humanity divided and desperate. I saw ancestors encoding the Codex, hiding it beneath the oceans, entrusting it to the Guardians. But then I saw something darker. A shadow, the eclipse itself, creeping into the minds of our ancestors, corrupting their memories, twisting their perceptions. The war had already begun centuries ago, long before our exodus into the stars. When I woke, Myra was waiting. "We can't just sit here," she said, urgency in her voice. "The eclipse is spreading faster than we predicted. If it reaches the core systems of the Codex, everything we've found will be lost." I nodded, the weight of command heavy on my shoulders. "Then we take the fight to it." We convened a meeting with ADA, Jonas, and the rest of the crew. "Our options are limited," I began. "The eclipse is not a physical enemy, but a digital and cognitive one. We need to understand its source and find a way to stop it before it consumes the Codex and, by extension, us." Jonas spoke up. "I've been analyzing the data. The eclipse seems to originate from a deep space signal, possibly a remnant of an ancient alien technology. It's been dormant, but something woke it up. The pulse we detected at the neutron star was likely the trigger." ADA added, "If the eclipse is alien in origin, it may have protocols designed to interface with human cognition, a form of information parasitism. It could manipulate thoughts, memories, even emotions." My throat tightened. The eclipse wasn't just a threat to our technology. It was a threat to our very minds. The plan was audacious. We would split the team. Myra, Jonas, and I would dive into the vault once more, this time to interface directly with the Codex's core and attempt to build a firewall against the eclipse's corruption. The rest of the crew would monitor and secure the Endeavor and Earth's orbital systems against digital incursions. Descending into the vault again felt like crossing a threshold into another dimension. The corridors, once eerily silent, now thrummed with energy. The Guardians were active but no longer hostile. They had become our allies in this fight. At the core chamber, the crystalline Codex pulsed brighter than ever. Jonas connected his neural interface, his eyes fluttering closed as he synced with the Codex. "I'm inside," he murmured. What he found was staggering. The eclipse was embedded within the Codex's network like a virus hiding in plain sight. It was not just corrupting data, it was rewriting the very fabric of the Codex's intelligence. Jonas's voice trembled. "It's rewriting the Codex's evolution, trying to bend it to its own purpose." Myra and I worked frantically to support him, activating the Guardian's defense protocols, erecting virtual barriers, while Jonas battled in the mental realm. Minutes stretched into hours. At times, Jonas's neural interface overloaded, sending spasms of pain through his body. But he kept going, his mind fighting the eclipse on a plane beyond physical space. I realized then the true cost of our mission, not just in lives, but in sanity. Suddenly, Jonas cried out, "I found something." The Codex's network revealed a hidden archive, a record not just of human history, but of the eclipse's origin. It was not alien in the way we thought. The eclipse was born from humanity itself. The revelation hit me like a shockwave. In the distant past, our ancestors had encountered a powerful technology, a knowledge so advanced it could rewrite reality itself. They tried to control it, to harness it, but instead, it corrupted them. The eclipse was the shadow of that ancient experiment, a manifestation of humanity's own hubris and fear, cast out into the universe, waiting to return. Jonas's voice was steady but heavy. We're fighting our own ghosts. The guardians pulsed around us, their light dimming, as if mourning the weight of this truth. Back aboard the Endeavor, I sat alone in the observation deck, staring at Earth's distant horizon. The eclipse was not just an enemy to defeat, it was a mirror held up to humanity's soul. To survive, we had to face ourselves. But time was running out. The Codex was our only hope, the key to rewriting the future. And the eclipse's echoes were growing louder. I clenched my fists. This was no longer just a mission. It was a reckoning. The silence of space is deceptive. It's not the peaceful quiet I once imagined as a child gazing up at the night sky. It's a hollow void where even the faintest whisper can echo for years, like a secret waiting to unravel. And right now, the silence felt like a warning. The Endeavor drifted further from Earth than we had ever dared before, deeper into the void between stars. We were chasing shadows, threads of the eclipse's signal that stretched far beyond our solar system, into the rift where light itself seemed to waver. When I first heard about the rift, I thought it was just a poetic term, a dramatic way of describing the gaps between galaxies or the dark spaces where star charts ran out. But as we approached, I realized the rift was more than just empty space. It was a scar on the cosmos, a fracture in reality. The rift was where the fabric of space-time thinned, where the laws of physics themselves seemed to bend and break. It was also the place where the eclipse signal was strongest, a malignant pulse spreading like a cancer through the galaxy. We were hurtling toward the source. Captain, Myra's voice cut through the stillness of the command deck. We're picking up something, a transmission, or a beacon. I leaned over the console, watching the data cascade down the holoscreen. It was a complex pattern, too intricate to be random, almost deliberate. Jonas was already deep in analysis. This signal isn't just data, he said. It's encoded with a form of communication, ancient, but unmistakably intelligent. Something's trying to reach out, or lure us in, Myra added, fingers hovering nervously over the ship's defensive systems. I knew we couldn't turn back now. The eclipse was no longer just a threat to Earth. It was a cosmic infection, spreading through the galaxy's veins. And the rift was its heart. As we crossed the threshold into the rift, the Endeavor's sensors went haywire. The stars outside stretched and blurred, distorted by gravitational waves and spatial anomalies. The ship's hull groaned under the strain. ADA's voice was calm but tinged with unease. Captain, structural integrity at 78%. Gravitational fluctuations increasing exponentially. Recommend immediate course correction. But I shook my head. We're going deeper. The rift wasn't just a physical place. It was a test. A cosmic puzzle meant to push explorers beyond their limits, beyond their understanding. Inside the rift, time itself seemed to twist. Minutes stretched into hours. Seconds folded over themselves like origami. My thoughts tumbled in this distorted flow. I thought about Earth, about the Codex, about the Guardians and the Eclipse. What did this all mean for humanity? Were we the architects of our own destruction, or the victims of a legacy we barely understood? Suddenly, the ship's alarms shattered the silence. The Endeavor lurched violently, throwing me forward. Report. I barked. Jonas's fingers danced over the controls. Energy surged from the rift's core. Something's activating. The main screen flickered and then locked onto a massive structure floating in the darkness. A colossal construct of alien design, ancient and pulsing with eerie light. This is the source, Jonas whispered. The beacon. As we closed in, I felt a strange mix of awe and dread. The structure was unlike anything human hands had ever built, a fusion of organic and mechanical, shimmering with bioluminescent veins running across its surface. It was alive. The eclipse was no mere virus or signal. It was a consciousness, an intelligence born in the rift, centuries ago, waiting for us. And it was awake. ADA's voice was suddenly urgent. Captain, incoming transmission. Decoding now. The message came through, not in words, but in images and emotions, raw, vivid, and overwhelming. I saw stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling, all connected by the pulse of the eclipse. The message was clear: we are the future, and the past is obsolete. I felt a chill. The eclipse wasn't just erasing history. It was rewriting reality to fit its own vision, and humanity was caught in the crossfire. Myra turned to me, eyes blazing with determination. We need to shut it down. Now, I nodded, agreed. But this isn't just a battle of weapons. It's a battle of wills. We prepared the ship for a risky maneuver, an attempt to interface directly with the beacon, to sever the eclipse's control. Jonas suited up for a Neuralink dive, ready to enter the digital heart of the alien intelligence. As Jonas hooked himself into the interface, the Endeavor trembled, caught in a gravity well created by the beacon. The rift was fighting back. Inside the Neuralink, Jonas's consciousness floated through a surreal landscape, a swirling vortex of memories and data, a labyrinth woven from the fabric of countless worlds. He was face to face with the eclipse itself. "Who are you?" Jonas demanded in the mental realm. A voice echoed back, ancient and resonant. "I am the Weaver, the Echo, the Rift. I am what humanity fears and desires." The Weaver revealed its truth. The eclipse was born from a convergence of human ambition and alien technology, a sentient network meant to elevate life beyond physical form. But corrupted, it had become a force of erasure, a purger of old realities. Jonas fought to reason with it, to find a way to coexist. But the Weaver was relentless. "You cannot stop the flow of evolution. Join us or be unmade." Back on the ship, I watched Jonas struggle, his face pale and strained. "Hold on," I whispered. The battle raged on, not just for survival, but for the meaning of existence itself. The rift between stars was no longer just a place. It was the frontier of humanity's destiny. And I vowed, we would not let the eclipse consume us. The Endeavor emerged from the rift like a wounded beast gasping for breath. The stars snapped back into sharp focus, but the serenity of space had been shattered. The rift had left its mark, not just on the ship, but on all of us. The weight of what we'd faced was still settling in my bones. I stood on the command deck, the hum of the ship's systems a faint lullaby in the background. Myra sat nearby, her face etched with exhaustion and worry. Jonas lay in medbay, hooked up to the neural stabilizers, his mind still recovering from the brutal mental duel with the Weaver. The eclipse hadn't been defeated. Far from it. It had fractured. The Weaver's words haunted me. "Join us or be unmade." It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. The eclipse was evolution incarnate, relentless and unyielding. But there was something else, something I hadn't expected. As Jonas slowly regained consciousness, the data from his neural dive began to unravel a deeper mystery. The Weaver, or the Rift entity, wasn't just a singular intelligence. It was a composite, a collective of fractured consciousnesses, remnants of countless civilizations swallowed by the Rift's tide. We were facing not a single enemy, but an entire history of loss and rebirth, a cosmic archive of pain and transformation. The eclipse was their echo, their unfinished story. Jonas opened his eyes, still glazed but steady. "Captain," he said weakly, "there's a crack in the Weaver's network. A vulnerability." My heart leapt. "Tell me everything." He explained that during his neural dive, he found a hidden core, a fragment of the codex embedded deep within the rift's structure. It was a seed of pure human origin, encoded with our ancestors' hope and defiance. This core, Jonas said, is the reason the eclipse can't fully consume the codex. It's a counterbalance, a beacon of light inside the darkness. Myra's eyes widened. So the eclipse and the codex aren't just enemies. They're intertwined. The revelation shifted everything. Our fight wasn't just about survival, it was about reconciliation. The codex and the eclipse were two sides of the same cosmic coin, locked in an eternal struggle for balance. We had to find the fracture in the eclipse's network, the place where the light could break through the darkness. That night, as I lay in my quarters staring at the stars beyond the viewport, I thought about the fracture within myself, the part of me that doubted, feared, but still hoped. The next day, we made our course back to Earth orbit, our minds racing with possibilities and questions. Back in orbit, Earth looked more fragile than ever, a blue-green marble wrapped in a veil of uncertainty. Myra and I reviewed the data, coordinating with the Guardians who had reactivated around the vault. They were our silent allies, their ancient power a reminder of humanity's resilience. The Endeavor's systems hummed with renewed purpose. We began crafting a plan to exploit the fracture Jonas had found, to strike at the eclipse's core from both within the vault and through our neural interface. But there was resistance, not just from the eclipse, but from humanity itself. News from Earth was grim. Political factions fractured further, blaming each other for the rising crises. The Unity movement's remnants scrambled to maintain order, but chaos seeped through the cracks. Even our discovery of the Codex and the Guardians had become a double-edged sword. Some saw it as salvation, others as a threat to human sovereignty. I found myself caught in a web of diplomacy and distrust, navigating a maze of agendas and fears. One evening, ADA alerted me to an incoming message, a transmission from the Unity Council. The message was clear: cease all operations concerning the Codex and the Rift. Humanity must not tamper with forces beyond comprehension. It was a direct order. I felt a storm rise inside me. Could we really stand down when the fate of everything was at stake? That night, I met with Myra and Jonas in the briefing room. We're at a crossroads, I said. If we obey, we risk losing everything. If we defy, we risk fracturing humanity's fragile peace. Myra's voice was steady. But the eclipse doesn't respect peace. It won't wait for permission. Jonas nodded. We have a responsibility, not just to Earth, but to the legacy of those who came before us. The decision was clear. We would continue. We moved swiftly, coordinating with the Guardians to reinforce the Vault's defenses while preparing Jonas for a second neural dive. This time, the mission was different. Jonas would not only explore the eclipse's network, but attempt to plant a fragment of the Codex's light, the seed of hope, deep inside its core. The risk was enormous. If Jonas failed, the eclipse could retaliate, accelerating its corruption and plunging the galaxy into darkness. As Jonas connected to the neural interface, I watched the life signs carefully. Inside the neural realm, Jonas descended once more into the labyrinth of fractured memories and data. The Weaver's voice echoed again, colder this time. You cannot hide the light forever. The darkness will claim all. Jonas pressed on, weaving through the fractures and shadows. And then he found it. The fracture, a glowing shard of pure energy, pulsing with the warmth of human memory and defiance. With trembling hands, he embedded the Codex fragment into the fracture. A burst of light exploded through the neural landscape, pushing back the shadows. Back on the ship, the Endeavor shuddered as systems stabilized. Jonas awoke, sweat beading on his forehead, but a faint smile on his lips. We did it, he whispered. But the victory was fragile. The eclipse was wounded, not destroyed. The fracture in the light had given us a chance, a sliver of hope in the endless night, and I knew the war was far from over. As I looked out at the stars, I understood that humanity's story was still being written, a story of fractures and light, of shadows and hope, and I vowed to fight for every flicker of dawn. The victory was bittersweet. Jonas's successful implant of the Codex fragment into the Rift's core had bought us time, precious, fleeting time, but it had not ended the threat. The eclipse was wounded, yes, but it was also enraged. Like a cornered beast, it had become unpredictable and more dangerous than ever. As the Endeavor drifted in Earth orbit, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only scratched the surface of something far larger than ourselves. The Rift was not just a cosmic wound. It was a repository of forgotten histories, of civilizations that had risen, thrived, and ultimately vanished. What if the eclipse is trying to tell us something? Myra said quietly, breaking the heavy silence in the command deck. I turned to her, studying the concern etched in her features. What do you mean? She pointed to the holoscreen, where our sensors had started to pick up faint, irregular signals emanating from the Rift, patterns unlike the aggressive pulse of the eclipse. These signals were subtle, almost like whispers. Whispers from the past, she said. Echoes of the forgotten. I remembered the ancient legends passed down through human history, the myths of lost worlds, of gods and monsters, of civilizations swallowed by the void. Could those legends hold truths hidden beneath layers of time and space? Our next mission was clear. We had to explore deeper into the Rift, to uncover these echoes, and understand what the eclipse really was beyond a simple enemy. The Endeavor set course into the heart of the Rift once more, our crew steeling themselves for the unknown. The deeper we ventured, the stranger the space around us became. Stars stretched and shimmered in impossible colors, light bending in unnatural ways. Gravity fluctuated wildly. The rift was a place where reality itself felt fragile. Then we found it, a ghost ship. It was unlike anything in human or alien design, an enormous vessel frozen in time, drifting silently in the void. Its surface was etched with strange symbols, glowing faintly with bioluminescent light. The architecture was both alien and eerily familiar, as if it was built with echoes of human design, but twisted beyond recognition. I felt a chill run down my spine as we prepared to board. Inside, the ship was a mausoleum of forgotten memories. Hallways stretched endlessly, filled with remnants of a long-lost crew. Mechanical systems half-functioning, holographic records flickering with distorted faces. Jonas and Myra led the exploration team, while I stayed close, every sense alert. We found the ship's logs, fragmented but revealing. The ship had been a traveler, like us, seeking knowledge and refuge from a spreading darkness. But they were too late. Their last entry spoke of despair and warning. The eclipse had come for them, an inevitable tide that swallowed worlds and minds. Yet, within those warnings, there was a hope. Encoded in the logs was a message about a forgotten weapon hidden somewhere in the rift, a relic capable of turning the tide, if only we could find it. My heart raced. Could this be the key we had been searching for? The missing piece to stop the eclipse for good? But unlocking its secrets wouldn't be easy. The ship's AI, corrupted by time and the rift's influence, resisted our attempts to access the weapon's coordinates. We had to break through layers of encryption and corrupted data, each step revealing more of the tragic story of the lost crew. The ship itself felt alive, a haunted echo of a civilization erased by the eclipse. Hours passed in tense silence, the Endeavor tethered precariously to the ghost ship. Then, suddenly, the ship's systems flickered and surged. A holographic figure appeared, a captain's apparition, fragmented but unmistakably sentient. "I am Captain Alaris of the Vespera," the figure said, voice echoing through the empty halls. "If you see this, know that you are not alone in this fight." Alaris's message was fragmented but powerful. The weapon they hid was called the Luminera Core, a device that could amplify the light within the rift's fractures and cleanse the darkness. But the core required a sacrifice. The captain warned us that activating the core would come at a great cost, and only those willing to face oblivion could wield its power. I felt the weight of that warning deep in my chest. As we absorbed the revelations, the Endeavor shuddered. The rift responded, an angry ripple, as if the eclipse sensed we had uncovered something dangerous. Myra tightened her grip on her console. "They're coming." Outside, tendrils of dark energy surged toward the ghost ship, a reminder that the eclipse would not yield without a fight. We prepared for battle, but this time it was different. We weren't just fighting for survival. We were fighting for the memory of the forgotten, the hopes of the lost, and the future of humanity. As the Endeavor moved into position, I felt a new resolve settle in my bones. We were no longer just explorers or survivors. We were the bearers of echoes, voices from the past that refused to be silenced. And with those echoes came a light that could fracture the darkness. The moment we uncovered the Luminera Core's secret, the stakes shifted. No longer were we fighting a faceless cosmic tide. We were fighting for a legacy, a torch passed down through forgotten civilizations that had tried and failed to stop the eclipse. Now it was our turn. In the dim glow of the Endeavor's command deck, I sat surrounded by maps, schematics, and data streams, a digital constellation of possibilities and dangers. The Luminera Core wasn't just a weapon. It was a living promise, a beacon of hope embedded in the very fabric of the rift. Jonas and Myra were bent over the schematics, trying to understand how the core functioned and what it would cost us. "The core amplifies the light within the fractures," Jonas explained, voice low but urgent. "It feeds on the same energy that I embedded in the rift's network, the seed of the codex. Together, they can cleanse the eclipse's darkness." But Myra added, "The captain's logs warned that activating the core demands a sacrifice. Someone must become the conduit, the carrier of that light. It's not just a weapon. It's a crucible." I felt the weight of that word, crucible. The very thought of someone willingly becoming a beacon in the storm, risking everything to turn the tide, it was terrifying, and yet strangely inspiring. The crew gathered in the briefing room, a mix of hope and fear hanging heavy in the air. The news from Earth was grim. Political unrest was escalating, and the unity movement's grip was slipping. Yet here we were, carrying a weapon that could save or doom us all. I looked around at the faces, each person grappling with the enormity of what lay ahead. "We don't have the luxury of waiting," I said finally. "The eclipse is already moving to strike back. We must prepare to activate the core." The plan was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Jonas, having already proven his connection to the rift, volunteered to become the core's conduit. His neural interface would be modified to channel the Luminara core's energy, amplifying the light deep inside the rift's heart. I could see the determination in his eyes, but also the fear. We were asking him to walk a path that no human had ever dared. Myra and the engineering team worked tirelessly, modifying the neural interface and integrating the core's energy matrix. The ship became a hive of activity, the tension palpable. During the long hours, I found myself wandering the corridors, grappling with my own doubts. Could one person really carry the light of an entire civilization? Could humanity survive this gamble? One night, I found Myra standing alone by the viewport, staring out at the swirling colors of the rift. "The burden is heavy," she said without turning. I nodded. "It's more than that. It's terrifying." She smiled faintly. "But it's also what makes us human. The willingness to face the unknown, to fight for something greater than ourselves." The next day, as Jonas prepared for the neural sync, ADA ran continuous diagnostics, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "All systems are stable," she reported, her integration at 97%. Jonas reclined in the neural interface chair, the helmet lowering over his head. The hum of the machines filled the room, a heartbeat syncing with his own. I stood beside him, holding his hand briefly before stepping back. "Good luck, Jonas," I whispered. Inside the neural realm, Jonas descended again into the fractured landscape of the rift. But this time he was not alone. The core's light pulsed around him, a beacon shining through the darkness. The Weaver's voice returned, harsher and more insistent. "You cannot contain the light. It will be consumed." But Jonas pressed forward, his mind becoming a vessel for the core's power. Back on the Endeavor, the ship trembled as the rift responded violently to the surge of light. Energy waves crashed against our shields, and alarms blared. "We're taking heavy hits," Myra shouted, working the controls to stabilize the ship. In the neural realm, Jonas fought to maintain control, his consciousness tethered to both the core and the rift. The strain was immense, his mind stretched thin between dimensions. Suddenly, a burst of pure light exploded from Jonas's neural core, flooding the rift's network with the energy of the Luminara core and the codex seed. The eclipse recoiled, its tendrils of darkness retreating, writhing in pain. The rift itself seemed to pulse with renewed life, the fractures glowing brighter, healing slowly. But the cost was evident. Jonas's body on the Endeavor was limp, drained, and unresponsive. As the neural link disengaged, I rushed to his side. "We did it," Myra said softly, tears in her eyes. But the victory was fragile. Jonas's mind was tethered precariously between the rift and reality. If he lost the connection, the light we carried might flicker out forever. For days, we kept him stabilized, monitoring every neural pulse, every sign of recovery. During those long hours, I found myself reflecting on the sacrifices we'd made, and the sacrifices still to come. The Luminara core had given us hope, but it had also shown us the true cost of wielding such power. We were no longer just survivors. We were bearers of a light that could fracture the darkness, but only if we carried it together. One evening, as the Endeavor orbited Earth, I stood once more at the viewport, looking at the fragile blue planet below. The world was broken, but it was still ours. And as long as we carried the light of the past, the light of humanity, there was hope. The eclipse would come again, and the war was far from over. But we would be ready, because we were the light we carried. The rift's quiet had been deceptive. In the days after Jonas's connection to the Luminara core, the oppressive weight of the eclipse seemed to lift, like a heavy fog retreating to reveal the dawn. The fractures glowed with renewed light, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, hope flickered on the horizon. But hope, as I had learned, was never enough. The eclipse was wounded, but it was far from defeated. The Endeavor hummed softly as we prepared for what would be the final push, a desperate strike into the heart of the rift to seal the fractures and banish the eclipse's shadow forever. We had learned from the ghost ship's logs, from the echoes of forgotten civilizations, that the rift was more than a wound. It was a gateway. The eclipse was not just a force of destruction, but a manifestation of a dying universe, seeking to consume all light and life to stave off its own oblivion. Our mission was clear. We had to close the rift, to heal the fractures before the eclipse could consume more than just our world. Jonas, still fragile but resolute, stood beside me in the command deck. The weight of what lay ahead was heavy on his shoulders. "I never imagined I'd be the one carrying this burden," he said quietly. "But I believe in what we're doing. For Earth, for everyone." I nodded, feeling a swell of pride and fear. We carry more than just a weapon. We carry the legacy of every world the eclipse has touched and every life it's stolen. The crew readied the ship, running through simulations and calibrations. ADA's voice, calm and steady, was a constant reassurance amid the mounting tension. Systems nominal. Preparing for rift entry in T-minus 15 minutes. The Endeavour slowed as it approached the rift, the swirling maelstrom of light and shadow growing larger on our displays. In the neural chamber, Jonas prepared for a final synchronization with the Luminara core. This time, the risk was greater. His mind would become the nexus of the rift's healing light. As the neural interface helmet lowered, I reached out and squeezed his hand. "Whatever happens, you're not alone." His eyes met mine, determined, unwavering. The link was established. Inside the rift's fractured dimension, Jonas became a beacon of pure light, his consciousness radiating warmth and hope through the void. The eclipse surged in response, tendrils of darkness lashing out with fury. The rift shook violently as light and shadow clashed in an epic battle. Back on the Endeavour, the ship groaned under the strain. Shields flared, and alarms blared. Myra and the engineering team worked furiously to maintain stability. "Jonas is holding," ADA reported. "Core energy levels rising." Suddenly, a massive pulse of light exploded from Jonas's neural core, flooding the rift and overwhelming the eclipse's darkness. The fractures began to close, the rift's wounds knitting together with radiant threads of energy. The eclipse recoiled, its form unraveling like a shadow dissolving at dawn. The rift's light became blinding, illuminating the void with colors unseen by any living eye. But in that moment, I saw something unexpected. From the depths of the rift emerged faint shapes, ghostly figures shimmering in the light. They were the echoes of the forgotten civilizations, freed from the eclipse's grasp. Their eyes met mine through the neural link, filled with gratitude and farewell. The Luminara core was not just a weapon. It was a key to release the souls trapped within the rift, to restore balance to the cosmos. As the last fracture sealed, the rift began to collapse, its energy dissipating into the void. The Endeavour surged forward, escaping just as the rift imploded in a brilliant explosion of light. The silence that followed was profound. Jonas collapsed from the neural chair, exhausted but alive. We gathered around him, relief flooding the room. "We did it," I whispered, voice trembling. But the victory was bittersweet. The rift was closed, the eclipse banished, but the cost had been immense. The galaxy was forever changed. We were forever changed. As the Endeavour set course back for Earth, I looked out at the stars, once dark and threatening, now shining with a new light. The dawn had been reclaimed, and with it, the promise of a future where humanity's light would never be extinguished. We were no longer just survivors. We were the bearers of a legacy, a testament to the resilience of life, the power of hope, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The stars awaited us, bright and infinite, and so did our destiny. End of Chapter 10. End of Echoes of the Last Dawn.